Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Well, today we're gonna do a different kind of video because frankly I'm feeling lazy as shit. But before we get there, a little bit of exciting news. You may have noticed I have now rolled out my new logo, which was designed by a friend of mine who's a professional graphic artist. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I've also taken that logo and had a new outro made from it, and here's a quick preview. If you want to see the rest of it, obviously keep watching to the end of this video. Also, I'm announcing a viewer contest. Now, over time, I've gotten messages from some of you that you would like to speak to me personally. As much as I wish I could do that, I really don't have the time in that I have a muggle job, I have a writing gig, I have a singing gig, and I have the YouTube thing. And while I can't talk to all of you who would like to talk to me, I could talk to one of you. So this is how we're going to do it. In order to separate the fans from the non-fans, I'm going to ask you one question that I would like you to submit an answer to. On 4 videos, I have broken out my guitar and sung a song. Which are those 4 videos? So please don't put the answer to the comments. I want you to send me the answers through a personal message on my Facebook fan page. Any other answers will not be read. I'll put a link to my page in the info section below. Now that we got that housekeeping out of the way, what am I going to talk about today? Well, I guess you could call it This Transgender Life, which are stories that have happened to me that are not nearly long enough to make a whole video out of, but might be cute if I stack them all together. The first story involves my credit card. Now, my bank allows me to put a picture on it, but as a transgender person, it has actually come in extremely handy. Picture this scenario. You're sitting at dinner with a bunch of transgender women at a restaurant. The waitress comes back with your credit cards and is trying to figure out which credit card belongs to who. And she looks down and she looks at the names and she realizes that none of the names match the faces of anybody sitting at the table. She might also be a little embarrassed to call out these obviously masculine names for these women. That's just one of the things that happen in a transgender life when you're still early on in your transition and you haven't gotten your formal name changed yet. You end up outing yourself to everybody, and that means waitresses, mechanics, cashiers at the local supermarket, everywhere. But in my case, I've been able to get around that by just simply saying, yeah, my card is the one with the picture of my son on it. I mean, how cool is that? So there's a quick tip for those of you who are early on in your transitions. Not that it always works. There was that one time I went to Firehouse Subs, and yeah, I'm calling you out, Firehouse Subs. And I gave my card to the cashier, and she never bothered to ask me what name I wanted to put on the order. And so I sat there waiting for my sandwich when all of a sudden I heard yelled across the restaurant my old male name. And to be honest, yes, I was very embarrassed to get up and go and get my sandwich and sit down again and eat it in front of everybody. I felt outed in a very loud and public way, and it just makes me think that perhaps we need a little transgender sensitivity training in these sorts of situations. There have also been a few times when I've had a little fun with that card, like when a waitress came back and looked at the picture on the card and looked at me and she goes, wow, your son looks so much like you, exactly like you, in fact. And I looked at her and I said, yeah, you know, you're right. Now I know what I would have looked like if I'd been born a boy. And all my friends around me just started laughing to themselves because of course they knew what the joke was, but the waitress didn't. She just looked confused. The next story is about the time I went to MAC Cosmetics to get a little bit of a makeover. My friends had decided just before my surgery to throw me what we called a rebirthday party. And I was really excited because I'd never gotten to go to my prom or any kind of fancy dress up events as my true self. So I decided to go to the whole 9 yards. I went to David's Bridal, I got myself this gown, this princess gown, and then I went and made myself an appointment at MAC Cosmetics. Because on that day I wanted a little bit of professional application to my makeup. I was really nervous because I'd never been in a situation like that or in a MAC store at all, really. The makeup artist started working on me and we were chit-chatting and talking about this and that. Then she starts putting mascara on my eyelashes and she says something like she would kill to have my eyelashes, which, you know, I guess they're pretty long, I don't know. And I look at her and I say, these are nothing. You should see my son's eyelashes because they're insanely long. And the makeup artist stops and she looks at me and she goes, boys always get the best features. And when she said that to me, I almost lost it. I just started laughing. And she asks me, why are you laughing so much? And I told her, well, I'm transgender. And it turns out she was really trans friendly and does a lot of makeup for gender non-conforming people, so it was all cool. The last story also involves my son, which I've just realized all these stories involve my son in one form or another. But it was about the time a couple years ago when I had to go down to Texas to help him get his passport. You see, he and my ex-wife were going to go to the Dominican Republic with their church to do some mission work. In order to do that, he needed a new passport. And since my ex knew I was coming down anyway, it just seemed easier to present ourselves at the post office as the biological mother and father, as the regulations say. Of course, I knew this was not going to be any ordinary day, but this wasn't the first time I'd ever done that kind of thing. In fact, I'd had to do that myself for my own passport at one point. And the technique I had developed, and here's another tip for you transgender people out there, I did not have to out myself in front of all these strangers in line. I had my legal name change documents, I had my gender confirmation surgery letter from my surgeon, and I just took all these documents and I pushed them to the post office worker, and I told him to just read everything there. Then he did what he needed to do and sent my documents off, and a little while later I got my own passport back. But in the case of my son, it was going to take a little more work because I also had to prove that I was his biological father. So in that case, I brought all the same documents, although for him we also had to bring his birth certificate, which named the mother and father on it, of course. So we pushed all these documents to this lady at the post office, and she was all kinds of confused. She looks at me, she looks at my ex-wife, she looks at me, she looks at my ex-wife, and she's like, what? Who is what? At this point, I'm pretty self-confident in who I am, and I don't really give a shit. So I just went to her and I said, I am the biological father. And then she said something that was actually kind of inappropriate. She looked at my wife and she said, I gotta ask, how did you take it? I don't even remember what my ex said at that point. I know she said something, but it wasn't that big a deal. And then we submitted all the paperwork, and a few weeks later, my son had his new passport. I gotta say though, because my son was with us, I was a little concerned that maybe this whole exchange had embarrassed him a little bit. So when we got back in the car and I was driving him home, I asked him how he felt about the whole thing. And I'll never forget what he told me. He says, it's my life. You know, at this point, for half his life, I've been Maya, so to him, it's really no big deal anymore. And he's had very few occasions where he's had to be embarrassed, and he's used to it. And he's the coolest little dude I know, although I gotta say, he's not a little dude at all anymore. He's actually just started high school, and I can't believe that. And he makes me so proud every day. So that's it for this week's video. Don't forget about that contest, and don't put the answers in the comments because you're just decreasing your chances of winning. Also, stay tuned for the new outro. Like, share, and subscribe, and see you around interwebs.